Okay, and thanks once again, and welcome back to another wonderful session. And again, if you haven't joined yesterday's class, my name is Adam. And what we were trying to understand here is when you go to organization, how does a DevOps project look like, right? For that, I told you in the last session, there are 6 points that you have to remember, which is 6 best practice. The solution you give should be cloud native, and whatever that you are trying to run as an application or a machine, it should be highly available. And then disaster recovery, so that if everything goes down, how do you get it back? And how do you make sure that you can monitor and observe whatever that you are running? And there has to be a security in each and every aspect that you are working. And then how are you going to automate all these things? So which is where, what are the different tools and techniques that you're going to use to ensure this complete practices are implemented? And for that, I also kind of told you, and we understand, you always go through this process or a life cycle where you develop everything first, which is where apply all the design aspects, cloud native aspects, and use the help of AI if the code is not there. And then you're going to implement it. And once the implementation is done, you're going to then do the upgrades or maintenance, monitoring, right? Or scaling. So those kind of things in the operations, which is day two. So now we didn't talk about day zero because assuming there is a code which is already developed, we are focusing more on the day one on how do you implement it to get the best practices, assuming that we have developed the code. So that's where I was trying to go. Now, once this is done, then we will kind of talk about the day two and what are all activities that we have to do. Now, again, quickly, so this is the architecture that we were going through. So what I wanted to do in order to get a high availability, again, these are the 3 things I need in Jenkins. If a machine goes down, how do you recreate the machine? And in that machine, how do you get all the data back? And then how do you make sure as a user you load balance so that if one machine is not there, user should not worry. So you access the load balancer and it should redirect to another machine. Now for this, we found the solution where we are going to use a service like auto scaling group, which can help us to recreate the machine anytime when one goes down another machine. And then we will use EFS mount to act as the storage. And then we will use the elastic load balancer to help us to do the load balancing of this machine. All right. Now, before we go here, we also understood I need to make sure we build a golden image, which is nothing but a AMI in which we have whatever the OS we want, plus whatever the specific version of Jenkins and the dependency for Jenkins, which can help us to run. So that is where this is the image which we are going to use, so that whenever I use this as the image in my auto scaling group, when a machine is created, Jenkins will be automatically installed and configured. So that will save time, and also it is a security compliance in which we are making sure you're not randomly using any AMI or anything without knowing. So security has to come right from the beginning. All right. Now again, this is what we were seeing. So yesterday we were going through this pipeline. Again, I'll just connect back. Again, I'm just giving a quick recap so that you can go through what we have done. So this was the Jenkins we used for building our AMI, and same way. So we had the AMIs that we built. Okay, don't worry if you have not attended yesterday's session. We'll make sure this is uploaded. into the channel, right, a little later. So yeah, again, I'll just take this time. Uh, please make sure if you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please give a like and subscribe so that once we upload those webinars that we are going through, or in future, whenever we have new webinars, you will be notified and you don't miss. All right. Okay. So this is the pipeline that we ran yesterday, and we generated image. Now this is how your images look. So every 3 months you're going to generate. So you can see I've just mentioned this. So this was the image that we built yesterday, assuming yesterday was the 3rd month cycle that we want to build. Okay. Now we were trying to implement this. And for this, we first started with creating a EFS, and then we have a elastic load balancer. So the only thing what we wanted to do is using this new AMI, create the launch template and the auto scaling group. Okay. So that's where, again, just to show you, we have the load balancer. Okay. And we also have the EFS. So the only thing that I'll do is try to create the launch template, and we will see how we can automatically create machine, and if it goes down, how does it get recreated, and how does the load balancer act. Okay. All right. So this is when we already have the load balancer. Now, in order for us to create the remaining work, which is the launch template and the auto scaling group, I have another Terraform project in which I have created it as a template. Okay. So let me kind of open that again. So here I have something called as blue and green, which I'll explain it in some time. Now let me go to this auto scaling code. So this is a module. And if you look at this module, I'm basically specifying my subnets in which the auto scaling group has to create the machine. And what is the name of my load balancer? So this should match whatever we just now created. Okay. And then this is where you're going to change the AMI that we need, and you tell which machine type that you want, and then which security group inside which your entire auto scaling group has to be created. Okay. So now if I go back to this specific code, and this is the module code. Now here you can see in the auto scaling, I have defined all those factors on how do I take and what is the template. And this is where, how do I decide whether you're going to run the machines in the auto scaling group in an active method or a active passive method. So active means 2 machines at a time. Active passive method means you're going to give it 1 machine at a time. Okay. So you can see I'm just trying to tell the minimum and maximum. And just to show back again, if I go back to this and you come down, you see I'm saying minimum size is 1, which means when I create the auto scaling group, it will create only 1 machine. So because of that, what I'm trying to run is a active passive method. Okay. But if you want your application to be always available and 0 downtime, then you can make sure this is as 2. So that way, if 1 machine goes down, there will be always another machine, and which is where it depends on our business requirement. So let me now connect back to the Terraform machine, and we'll try to run this. So we had already cloned, and let's go to the auto scaling blue and just cross check. So you have everything perfect. And this is where I have to change my AMI. So here, what you have to do is you need to make sure you take the latest one, right? Because you're starting now. So let me take this. So this is the one. So that's what already I have shown yesterday, which was not working. So we're just trying it again. So this AMI is correct. All right. So let's go ahead and create. So this will create the launch template and it will create the auto scaling group, and you will have one machine in it running, which is the active one. So Terraform plan. So let me apply. Right now I have only these three machines. So when this auto scaling group gets created, we should see one machine is created because I'm going to run it in active passive method. So there's only one machine. So if this goes down, auto scaling group will replace it with a new machine. All right, it created the auto scaling group. So let's refresh. So you should see that there is a new machine created using the auto scaling group, and that use the template, which is created using this AMI. And go back to load balancer, and we should see the load balancer. Okay, so this machine is in service. Okay, and this is connectable. So now if you want to connect, all you have to do is use the load balancer, right? So like again, as a user, you don't have to worry about the IP of the machine. So connect to the load balancer and it should redirect. Now for this, I'll take the load balancer's DNS name. So you access the load balancer 80, and this should redirect to the Jenkins running on any machine. So right now there is only one machine. All right. So here we can see that already the EFS is created, right? So because of that, you have the same test job, if you remember yesterday, that we had created using EFS. So which is where whatever is already available in the EFS, you get it. And because of that, the machine that you run has all the content what we already had. So this is how anytime when you go to the machine, you will be able to access the same data. Now let's also confirm how the auto scaling group is going to work. Okay, because here what happened? Now you're accessing the load balancer and the load balancer is redirecting to the machine. So let me again show you this. So let's try to destroy this machine. Now, the scenario is the auto scaling group should recreate the machine. And in that machine, you should have the same Jenkins and the same content of the Jenkins, which is the test job and the plugins. And then as a user, you access the load balancer. It should be simply redirecting it to the new machine. As of now, if you do, it won't send because we are running it active and passive method. So one machine is not there. Only when the new machine comes, the load balancer will redirect. So even if you go here and try to run, this will not connect because there is no machine and we have just deleted. So that's the reason it's from cache. See? So this is expected because we are running in active passive method. So the moment the new machine comes, the load balancer will map to it, and automatically when you access, load balancer will send it to the new machine. So that's how as a user, we will not worry. Or in real time, you're accessing any web page, right? That points to a load balancer and load balancer redirects to the machine which is available. So that is how as a user, we do not feel or worry about which machine the application is running. Okay. So now it's coming up. So let's just wait for some more time. All right. So you can see this is the new machine and the load balancer has started to recognize and the health check is fine. Now go back to the same load balancer and if you refresh, this will be pointing to the new machine in which Jenkins is running. But as a user, you will not see any difference. Okay. So you can compare the same thing with your day-to-day life. So that's where you go to facebook.com, linkedin.com, or any bank site or any shopping site. You go to the URL, that URL sends it to a load balancer, and load balancer redirects to a machine in which your application is running at that point of time. So that's where you do not see any difference on where exactly it is running. As a user, you will always access the application. So that's a similar concept that we are trying to apply here. So you access the load balancer and it should redirect to the machine which is running fine. So in that case, the active passive. So this went down. So auto scaling group recreated a new machine and load balancer is sending to it. And if you check, it should be the same EFS mounted and you should see the same job also. There you have. So this is what we call it as high availability. Okay. Wherein we are making sure if one machine goes down, another machine takes over and the data is replicated, and as a user you don't worry about the machine, you access the load balancer and it should redirect. However, not to repeat the same, if you want to make sure that there is no downtime, then make sure there are two machines running, then we call the method as active method. All right, so we understood how do we make sure the high availability of your Jenkins, and for that, pretty much how do we create our own golden image. But next, what else we do? So which is where let's talk about your upgrade. Now, whether you are using Jenkins or you have given the Jenkins to another team or your product team, now Jenkins will be running, correct? And this is exactly where the current instance of Jenkins, which is running, let's call it as blue version, okay? Just for understanding. Now, there is a launch template that we created, which is based out of the November AMI. And from there, a auto scaling group created a machine. Again, you want one or two machine, and there is a EFS. And to access this, you will be using load balancer. So what happens is You have to upgrade Jenkins, correct? So why are we building the image once in 3 months or 12 weeks is when a new version of Jenkins is available, you should also upgrade your Jenkins. Now, it is not mandatory that you need to upgrade Jenkins every 3 months, but if you're running Jenkins in production for safer place, you have to run it. But if not for lower environment, you can also upgrade Jenkins once in 6 months also. But regardless of this, let's say as a DevOps engineer, now everything is working fine for Jenkins, but there is a new AMI that we have built, and you want to replace your current Jenkins with the new AMI. So how do I replace my current Jenkins with the new AMI or with the new server created from the new AMI? That's when you need to think of a upgrade, and we have a strategy for it. This is exactly how you apply the upgrade process for any application, not only in Kubernetes or Docker. Because many times when we talk about Kubernetes, only then people think about, oh, you want to upgrade your application and in a zero downtime, then there are different strategies like blue, green, or canary. Now, that's exactly what you also have to apply. So now assume the Jenkins is running in production and some customers are using it. What will happen if you want to upgrade? So first of all, what is upgrade? I want to now create a new Jenkins machine based out of a new AMI. So which is where, let's say, after some time, I create a new AMI, and for that, I create a new template. So using this, if I create a machine, it will be new. So what should I do? Should I delete this machine and create the machine? Because if you do, there will be a downtime. So which is where in production, for Jenkins, I preferably use a method called blue-green strategy. And even I suggest all my customers and my team to do the same thing. Because what is blue-green strategy? So blue-green strategy helps you to deploy or upgrade a application. So in our case, Jenkins, with zero downtime. So what is zero downtime? I don't want an impact to happen for users, or the impact can be very, very less or minimal so that the business should run continuously. So how do I do in such a way my Jenkins can be upgraded when it is currently running? So that's where in blue green model, your current version of Jenkins that is running, consider it as blue. And the new version that you want to upgrade is what we are going to call it as green. So in the blue green model, you do not replace the servers immediately. You have another copy of the entire application, which is Jenkins in this case, running with the latest version. So in blue green model, you will have older version also running and newer version also running. And then you test the new version and everything is fine. Then you switch over the traffic. So how do I achieve in this architecture? Because this is why whatever the high ability architecture we used, right, we are going to follow the same. Now, there are different ways to achieve, but it's always better if you want a zero downtime, then do not touch whatever you already have. So let's say there is some particular version of Jenkins running, which is what I'm calling it as the blue version. Let us take the new AMI, and from the new AMI, you create another launch template and another auto scaling group. So which is what I'm calling it as green. So this way, you know, this is the older version and this is the new version. So now, anyway, I already have a Terraform code, right? See, this is the benefit of using IAC or Terraform. I can take the same code, just change some of the values or pass some of the values, and I can recreate everything. So I can simply create a new version of Jenkins based out of the new AMI that you build every 3 months. So now this version of Jenkins, you can call it as green version or the latest version. So once you create the auto scaling group and this Jenkins is successfully up and running, again, it is using the same EFS. It is not two EFS. So whatever that you have actually stored will also be visible in this. So now you can simply go ahead and do the test. And if you feel everything is fine here, then all we have to do is switch the traffic for the load balancer. Instead of going to the old Jenkins, send it to the new Jenkins. Or instead, I can say in this blue-green method, instead of the load balancer sending the traffic to the blue version of the Jenkins, send it to the green version. So that is how your applications will have zero downtime, because it is just about switching the traffic from blue to green. So this way, what will happen? At the same time, your old version was also working, the new version is also working, and only when the new version is updated properly, tested properly, you simply switch the traffic. And then do not delete it immediately, because in real time, there could be some problem. So let's assume you tested, it is fine, and you switch the traffic. But as soon as you switch the traffic, because of some problem, the machine started failing. Now, will you sit and fix this, or you still have the old one? So simply again, you can roll back. What is roll back? Just switch the traffic back to this. So this is why in blue-green method, if you're upgrading application, the upgrade can happen in zero downtime, because as a user, no impact. It's just about switching the traffic. But at the same time, if there is a problem and you want to switch back, simply move the traffic back and everything will be fine for a user, because user doesn't care where he is accessing, right? The load balancer is what they will access, and simply they'll go back. So this is how, in reality, whether it is Jenkins or anything else, you will follow a deployment strategy in which you switch the traffic to the new version, wait for some time. Now, what is that waiting? So which is where generally companies do a small testing called as post deployment verification, or we call it as PDV. Okay, it's important, note this, because these are the things which you're going to tell in interview. Why do you do that post deployment verification? So that is a quick verification which you will say everything is working fine on the new version. And then you can keep this for a couple of hours and then go ahead and delete it. Okay, so this is how what we will do once in a while. That is, for example, now after 3 months, another AMI is being built. That is, another golden image is built with a new version. So what you will do, create a new auto scaling group. So this time the current active is green. So you build the new based out of a version called blue. And then once this is successfully up and you do the post deployment verification, switch the traffic and then wait for some time. And once everything is proper and the traffic is flowing and there is no complaints, then you go ahead and delete this one. So this is how, using a blue-green method, you will be upgrading Jenkins very frequently. How frequently? As I said, if you are building a golden image every 3 months, then as a DevOps engineer, you should also upgrade your Jenkins at least once in 3 months. Now, do not worry if you are not doing it currently, but as a best practice, we have to do. Because if I'm not going to upgrade Jenkins in 3 months, then why should I even build my AMI or golden image once in 3 months? There is another reason for it. Okay. Now, this is how anytime that you're going to upgrade the version, or very frequently, whenever a new AMI is being built for Jenkins, we also have to upgrade. Okay. Let's see how this happens. So now, going back, now this is where if I build a new image, it will take some more time. So instead, what we will do, we just created the Jenkins using this AMI. Okay. So for time being, what I'll do, I'll take another AMI. Okay. I think we took 50B, right? Sorry, let me just cross check. So we created the blue. So this is why I said it's blue. So here we created using 44D8. So we actually took the latest. So for time being, let's assume the new AMI is anyone among them. Okay, do not worry. I know this is old, but for us, let's say this is the current AMI. Now this is called as blue version. So that's where what I'll do, I'll call this as blue. Okay, so that you know what we are trying to run. So this is our blue version. And according to that, there is a auto scaling group, which is also called as blue, and it is using the blue template. Okay. So what we will do now, let us take a new AMI. Okay. So this AMI, and we will try to create a green version. Now this is where you can use the same code, but it's better you don't mess it up. So what I'm doing, I'm just making sure I have another folder here called as green. So it's the same copy. Everything is similar. So the only thing you need to make sure that you are pointing to the same load balancer, and we will change the AMI. And make sure all the other properties, whatever you want, is proper. Okay. Now, I also have to make sure the security group as well as my subnets are proper. So, well, I have this. No, it's a little old one. So I'll take this as my new subnet. Okay. And security group is also important. Okay. So I've told that this is my subnet and this is the AMI that I'm going to use. And one more thing, change the name here to green. So we are going to create a new template, a launch template, a new auto scaling group called green, and it will be running one machine again with the help of the new AMI. Now this is where you should not be using load balancer here. Why? Because if the load balancer is being mapped to this, then load balancer will kind of send the traffic to both, right? So we want to send the traffic to the green Jenkins only after we test and we switch it. So that's the reason. Now, again, the benefit of Terraform is you just comment and everything will work fine. Only when you want, you can enable it. Okay, so that's where IAC is very, very important because it can be reused. So let's go ahead and run Terraform init. It says because there is no disk space, not a problem. Let me just delete any of the old one. Okay, I'll just delete the AFS one. That's fine. Okay, I think I have enough space now. Perfect. Let me go back to auto scaling green. Let's do a plan. And let's do a Terraform apply. So what we are doing, we are just creating another template, another auto scaling group, and a new machine, which is called as the green version. Okay, but still the load balancer will be pointing to the old one. So you can also cross check. So where is the load balancer pointing? To the old one, that is 8A9. So that is what we are actually seeing it. And you can see there is only one. But now when this runs, you will see a new machine. So only when we test it thoroughly and we feel that it is perfect, we will then do the cutover, which is what we call it as the actual deployment. But as a user, they don't have to worry. Only the traffic switch should happen. Okay, it created. So let's go back here and refresh. So you should see there is a new machine. So now I'll mark this as green Jenkins. Okay, you can again double check. This is 70060. Your load balancer should not be referring to this. So that way, as a user, you're still referring to the perfect or the previous version of Jenkins or application running. Now, once this is up, you test it separately. So this is where I'm directly going to this machine because I'm not using the load balancer. Huh. Now let's wait for some time to come. And this is also a good example why it is failing. So let's see. Okay, it says this is perfectly up. Now let's cross check by accessing this. Okay, for some reason, Jenkins is not up. That is perfect. Let's cross check why it is not working. Connect. This is a good scenario for showing the rollback also. Okay, it's going as root, so just change it to Ubuntu. Okay, it's the same problem that happened. Now, let's not worry about this. Now, this is where, if you see, in this scenario, we have a new machine which is not working fine. So this is when, even though this is faulty, as a user, when you use the load balancer, you're still accessing the healthier machine. So that's when blue green is going to actually help and do a zero downtime. Okay. Now, for a minute, let's assume that this machine is perfect. Okay. So now, how do you do the switch? So all you have to do is go back to your auto scaling group. Okay. First, you need to remove the traffic or the load balancer from the previous machines and then send it here. So for that, now go back to the auto scaling blue. Okay. Now here, edit this and just comment it out. See, that's where I still prefer IAC or Terraform because you don't have to sit and do anything else. Just comment out. Okay. And let's go ahead and do a Terraform plan and apply. So it will not destroy anything. All it will do is it will cut out the load balancer pointing to the auto scaling group or to the machine. So let's do Terraform apply. And to just take a couple of seconds. So this is where I said in real time, you can also automate this. So it's just going to be like a couple of seconds. So that is the seconds which is actually taking up for upgrade, correct? For a user, it's the glitch. So if you just go back to load balancer and refresh, right now there should be no machine. So we will now point it to the green machine. So let's go back to auto scaling, green. So again, you edit this main.tf. So once again, just enable it and do a Terraform plan and apply. So again, you're not recreating anything, just applying the load balancer. So load balancer will start pointing to the new one. So this is what we call it as switching the traffic. Okay. Now I'm just manually editing the file and applying both the place. You can also automate it further using some script. So that's where whenever you say switch the traffic, you just have to disable the load balancer for the old machine and enable it for the new machine. So typically, those few seconds of time is where we confidently say that the zero downtime. All right. So now if you go and refresh, you should see that the new machine. So this is the new machine, green. But we know that this is not working fine. So what will happen now? Go back to your load balancer, okay, and refresh the load balancer. You are not able to access. Why? The traffic has been switched from older blue version to new version. Because of that, it is not working. It is expected. So once again, as I said, okay, you found there is some problem. What should you do? Rather than wasting time in creating the machines and everything again, in blue green, you still have the old one, right? Everything is running. So all you have to do is cut the traffic from here and move the traffic to this. How? Once again, it's the same process. Edit here. Okay. So this is what I'm doing is called as rolling back. So I'm just switching the traffic back to my previous applications or machines that is running. So in this case, the blue version of Jenkins. So it's switching the traffic. Okay, so we just removed from the green. So now let's go back to the blue. See, this is the reason I made it as 2 copies so that you understand. So here, go back and then enable it. That's all. Okay, and then the same Terraform plan and apply. So immediately in seconds, traffic will be switched to the older version. So everything should be fine. So user should not be seeing any impact. So when you're going to organization, that's more important. So it's not just running anything. So you need to know how to handle this. So I'll apply. And as soon as you do this, if you come back and see, this should be going back. Yeah, once it applies, it should point to the new machine. And then if you go and access the load balancer, immediately it will send it to the old version. All right. So now if I refresh, it's pointing. Okay. It's taking time to register, not a problem. Because it'll run the health check and cross check and it'll take like a couple of seconds. Yes. So everything is fine. So now as a user, go back and access, you got your Jenkins back. So this is how in blue-green model, anytime you are upgrading, make sure you leave the current one and create a new copy. So that is where old copy is called as blue version, new copy is called as green version. And once everything is fine, switch the traffic. But if you feel there is a problem, then switch back or roll back. So this is how once in a while or once in 3 months, you need to upgrade Jenkins. And again, if everything is fine, then you go ahead and delete the other one. Say, for example, here, I upgraded back to blue. So I don't need this green one. I can simply go ahead and delete it. So again, use Terraform because you create infra and delete infra or resources using Terraform. So it's just click of button. Everything is automated and it's easy for you to reuse the code. Okay, that's why anything that you're doing in the cloud, right? We preferably use infra as code and a tool like Terraform. So which is why one of the popular interview questions in DevOps or SRE is Terraform. So you need to know the cloud, but you're not going to sit and do everything manually. Instead, use modules in Terraform, which is completely reusable code. Okay. Now, we understood what is Jenkins upgrade, and once in a while, you're going to upgrade Jenkins. Okay. So this is when it's another responsibility of yours. So yesterday I was just trying to talk about these, right? What is that? So you created the EFS. Yeah, sorry, this one. So these are the technologies and tools that we saw, and what we did, create EFS and then AMI, load balancer, and then create. So which is where whenever you want to upgrade, now what you're going to do is you call it as the blue one. Okay. And whenever you want to upgrade, you're going to create the auto scaling group in green model, and then you do the upgrade. So it could be a upgrade or rollback. Okay. So this is your operations. Okay. So what you are talking about is day two activity. So once everything is running, once in a while you are going to do. So which is where, again, I'm just going to give you a note. You have to build new Jenkins Golden AMI once in 3 months. And then you're going to upgrade Jenkins once in 3 months. And this is where you're going to again go through the same process, which is blue, green strategy. Because for zero downtime. Okay. All right. So we actually started seeing a day two operations. That is what will happen after everything is running. Okay, is this the only thing? No. Now let me tell you another question. Go back. When we created this machine, right? What is the type of the machine we created? Again, I just deleted the green, so you should have blue. Now, blue Jenkins, I created using a type called T2 T or T3 micro. Now, the question is, in reality, you need to know what should be the capacity of the master that you want to create. Now, over a period of time, when the usage keeps growing, so let's say you created a Jenkins for a product team and they are using Jenkins, but slowly more processes are running or more pipelines, more microservices, more CI/CD are running. Now, there is no upgrade in Jenkins, same Jenkins, but suddenly they need more CPU and RAM. What will you do? You cannot just add the same CPU RAM to this machine, correct? Because this machine has a fixed capacity. So how do you change your current Jenkins with a new Jenkins with a higher capacity? So which is where there will be certain requirements in which once again you have to upgrade the machine. The earlier scenario, what I told you is upgrading the Jenkins version. Okay. Now what I'm telling you, a real-time scenario or a real-time work you will get is you need to upgrade this machine to have more capacity. How? Now let's say Instead of T3 micro, I might require something like T2 medium or T3 large, whatever that you want to take. So then how do you do? Because once again, if this is running in production, how do I replace it? So you have to go back to the same blue-green strategy, which is why it's important. So now let's assume I have a current Jenkins running. Now this time I am not talking about creating a new AMI. It's the same AMI, but the machine type is different. So even in that scenario, what you do is use the blue-green method in which create another template for green, but this time you refer to the same AMI, but instead of the capacity what you have used older, use a new capacity that is a larger machine that you have decided. And then once this is successfully up, you simply switch the traffic. So this is how, once again, the blue-green method is not only when you're upgrading Jenkins, also when you're scaling your Jenkins, upgrading the server with more capacity, or technically we call it as scaling up your Jenkins. So this is how even you might be doing it for some other application. So let's see how that happens. And what I'll do, let's pick up a AMI type that is important. Okay. So what you can do now is, again, I'll go back to our code. So anyway, I have the green code here, right? So first in the green, this is when what I have to do is first, you see here, the type is T3 micro. So let's say instead of this, I'll say T2 medium. Okay. However, the AMI has to be changed, right? So it has to be the same AMI what we are using now. So this was the AMI that we were using. So I'll use the same AMI. So both of them are same because we are not upgrading Jenkins. Okay, I see in the chat someone is asking question, can I do both together? Yes, you can do. Because anyway, you're creating a new template. So you can give a new AMI and you can also do the scale both at the same time. That's also possible because anyway, you're switching from old Jenkins to new Jenkins. That's absolutely perfect. That's a good question. Okay, so now what I will do again, I have disabled the traffic because you need to make sure that this is completely up, test it, and then switch the traffic. Okay. So Terraform plan. Terraform apply. Okay, someone in the chat, he just pinging. How do you decide the type of the machine? Okay, that's a good question. Give me some time. Once I finish this, let's see if I can explain you that. Yeah, feel free to put your questions on the comment. I'll try to answer it now, if not at the end. It's created. So now go back, and so you should see the same version of Jenkins, but with the bigger capacity. So now I can call this as green Jenkins. Okay. And load balancer has not yet considered, but let's wait for this to successfully be up. Okay. And then we can access. Okay. Now hopefully you can connect to this. Right. So you can see Jenkins is up now. That means the same version of Jenkins, you added the capacity. So the only thing what you have to do is switch the traffic. So how do you do? The same concept what I showed. First, enable the traffic here and disable it on the other one. So Terraform plan and apply, and then go back and remove the other one. Now, just to show you, since we are confident that the new one is perfect, let us go ahead and directly delete the blue version so that the load balancer will only point to the new green version. Okay, now I'll go back to the auto scaling blue and I'll simply do a Terraform destroy. So I'm just simply deleting the blue auto scaling group, that machine, but load balancer will just don't refer to it anymore. That's it. So you can cross check. So you see that blue machine is kind of deleted. Doesn't matter. Now simply go to the load balancer and I'll just remove all of that. Now you just try to access your load balancer and it should start referring to your new Jenkins. So what did you do? You upgraded the Jenkins server, or technically I would say you scaled the Jenkins application where you got back the same data, correct? And there was zero impact, and look at the capacity. That's also been upgraded. So this is how the another responsibility that you will go through is scaling Jenkins master. Okay. What do you mean by scaling? More capacity based on need. So this is where based on requirement. So let me summarize all these things at the end so that project is not just to talk about tools, but also to talk about what and all are your responsibilities to take care. Okay. So in fact, these are your responsibilities. And you know what? It's very simple to explain what is your day-to-day activity based on this. So that's the reason I'm just trying to put it up. All right. So how frequently you do? Well, again, it depends on the requirement. So you need to kind of monitor, and whenever you feel more capacity has to be added, you then go ahead and scale the Jenkins. And again, for that, you follow the same blue-green strategy, same Terraform code. So that's how you're going to reuse, but it's just the process what you apply. Okay. So we saw the blue-green method of upgrade for both Jenkins version upgrade and scaling the Jenkins. But the next thing what we have is the security. And typically